Former Russian FSB officer Alexander Litvinenko was poisoned with radioactive polonium while living in the UK, reportedly working for the British intelligence service, MI6. He suffered a slow and agonising death in a London hospital in 2006. 7 years later, it's still not clear who was behind his death, and the diplomatic and legal wrangling over what happened continues. Today, the coroner, Sir Robert Owen, announced the British government had declined his request to hold a public inquiry into Mr Litvinenko's death, a decision that left his widow, Marina, bitterly disappointed.
Of course, when we've got this decision, I would say it's not just me. I think everybody were a little bit shocked and disappointed, and particularly in the way how it was done, when coroner clearly can see he was very, very disappointed as well, a way how government sends this letter just today morning.
Sir Robert said he was notified of the government's decision at just 10:15 this morning, even though he made his request for a public inquiry more than 6 weeks ago, asking for an urgent decision. Sir Robert asked for the public inquiry after it became clear an inquest into the death would not be able to hear all the available evidence because of a public interest immunity request by British Foreign Secretary William Hague. His request prevented evidence from MI5 and MI6 from being heard, leaving Sir Robert to ask for the public inquiry instead, some parts of which could be heard in closed court. Sir Robert said the inquest that had been due to begin next October now cannot go ahead because Mrs Litvinenko's legal team are likely to challenge the government's decision. Outside court, her solicitor said no decision had yet been made.
Once we have the grounds, we will be able to consider the legal implications and then decide on the challenge.
Ben Emerson QC, acting for Mrs Litvinenko, told the court the government had shown utter contempt for the position of Mrs Litvinenko and her son, and it's time the judicial authorities got to grips with the way the government is behaving. The QC, representing the media in the case, Alex Balin, said an inquest which cannot consider responsibility is an inquest that would be paralysed. It would be partial justice. Marina Litvinenko again.
For me, I lost him in a so bad way. Okay, anybody who died, even suddenly, one from England, it's a big shock. But how he was killed, it shows me it can't be only just a death. It was a torture, it was a punishment, it was something. And of course, who did it need to be just shown who did it, who behind of this.
Alexander and Marina Litvinenko sought asylum in the UK after Mr Litvinenko was dismissed from the FSB and twice arrested in Russia. The arrests centred on his allegation that the Russian authorities had conspired to assassinate the tycoon Boris Berezovsky. Litvinenko was charged with exceeding his authority, but both times the charges were dropped. On the day of his poisoning, it's known he met with Mario Scaramella, a security consultant and academic nuclear expert, at a sushi restaurant in central London. Later that day, he met 2 Russian men, one a former KGB officer, at the Millennium Hotel. In a letter released posthumously, Mr Litvinenko accused the Russian government of ordering his death, but the credibility of that letter is disputed. The case has long been a thorn in the side of Russian-British relations, but a resolution could be years away if Mrs Litvinenko decides to launch a judicial review. She says she won't give up hope in the British justice system.
I'm optimistic because now it's more and more people involved in this case and more people interested and to know the truth.
The Russian authorities have requested to be involved in any inquest, but they've received no response.